Yo, 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 yo. Hello, everybody. Love Volume 3. Thank you. I thought it turned out pretty well. I love all the posts. For those of you who get the book and make a post about it, I I appreciate it because it's fulfilling for me. Nice interview with Cotel. Yeah, I always like talking to that guy. Um, yeah, that was a good conversation about memetics, and yeah, I recommend looking at that because we got into a bunch of different stuff about that. It was pretty cool. Hello, Spicy Sarah. Are there still copies? Yes, there's still copies. Volume 3 arriving today from Dan. Yeah, it's awesome. Ukulele tapping. Oh yeah, I'll play some uke soon. I don't have I'm holding my phone right now, so I can't do a music stream. But I've been playing a little bit more. Mimetics, Rene Girard. Well, Dildo Dawkins is the one who isolated and thought that he created the word memetics, and he paralleled genes as the smallest particle of information in the material world, and that memetics memes are a unit of information. Play some Vetter. I'd have to practice a song. I could play some of his ukulele stuff, but I love that guy. I like that guy's voice. It's like got a shaky vibrato quality. Adds a bunch of tension. Much love from Portugal. Hey, David Nunez from Portugal. You guys have the most beautiful language. It's like Italian but less aggressive. For Eddie Vedder, you just get drunk. Eddie Vedder's like the male version of what's the girl's name? Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift. Like, like he just ruins his marriage and his relationships so that he can write a ukulele album. He's like, I really need to get inspired. How about destroy my family dynamic? Um I was looking into some Pete Seeger because I like folk. I like the picking. I like the stripped down tones and simplicity. I knew it kind of, but I knew that a lot of these folk singers were all just lefty reactionaries. But I didn't realize Pete Seeger because I think of Pete Seeger. I don't know why I associate that with just like Americana. Like, oh, Pete Seeger. I think of like, I don't know why I thought of like classic rock, but I was clearly off. Started looking up some songs. Dude was a straight up Commie. He's like, he's got this chant for the unions, but has like the graphic is like hands holding up a red star. I'm like, what is going on here? But then again, he's got, it's not about the words because you could always rewrite and change things and say something differently. What I value is the if I don't value the words and the message, I still can gather value from the playing and the singing. So mixed him up with Bob Seger, yeah, apparently. Got my Savage Xavier $5. Thanks. Got my Savage Memes Volume 3 today. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for your patience and whatnot. You know, it's, uh, it's it's fun to get them all out. I have a lot more. We for this round we actually had to get a storage unit, and so we go back there and we feel like we did so much work already, and we look and it's just a giant pallet of books again. Just everything we just did in again. But I'm not complaining because it's amazing to do. You know, it's repetitive work, signing 1,600 to 3,000 books over and over again with a little silver marker. Can get a little repetitive for a creative mind, but I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, playing a lot more music. I just ordered a pickup for my acoustic, the one that it's called a Woody. It goes inside the sound hole, and I bought a tiny little amp called a Black Star, little guy, because I don't need much, and I did a loop pedal. So start. I'm gonna start toying with the looping because I don't have time to do editing. So if I want to just, plug in and start do a little rip off cover of some song, I don't want to have to record over and over again and cut together footage. And if I want to do a live stream and just pull out like a a loop pedal for a live thing and put multiple layers, I feel like that'll help a lot. Why does my phone keep turning like red? Are you guys seeing that? It's like a red hue that suddenly emerges. All the commies I used to play music with love Pete Seeger. Yeah, I mean, it's so weird to look back and when you're younger, you automatically idolize the Bob Dylans and the Phil Oaks and the Seeger and uh what what's his name, Van Ronk, who I like the best out of all of them as far as his voice and his playing. But you just automatically think you agree with him, just like a poster, a poster of Che Guevara or like whatever Martin Luther King Jr. And you realize, oh, they're just a bunch of whiny gammas. They monopolized the folk, and then they used it as a catalyst into the rock and roll and further inversion that was definitely, if not source, definitely supported by like intelligence. Yuri Bezmenov, as little as I trust the guy, being that he's an absolute traitor of whoever he's working for. He was definitely pointed out the inversion. He didn't mention music though in arts, which I found peculiar. Like he was just talking about like general indoctrination, but didn't really include all this other stuff. But you look back and you're just like, oh, they're just young, folky kids who just thought they were on the right side and thought that pushing, degeneracy, in fact, under the guise of social justice and free expression. Um, you just look back and you're like, I wonder if some of them, even Bob Dylan today, I wonder if he looks back and he's just like, ugh, that was stupid. I never realized how similar Bob Dylan and Norm Macdonald sound. I don't know. Uh, Excited for Savage Sings Volume 1. Yeah, that'd be fun. Um, Thanks, Hummingbird Ranch. Appreciate that. I like Neil Young. Still, it's hard for a musician to play music and not get virtue, get it tangled with virtue. Like they think they have something to say, which they do, and then they think they're obligated to say the thing, and then they get into the world of like, we got to change something, and I'm gonna use my music. And I get it. Like I probably have that with memes and stuff, but it just you end up going to a sinkhole. That's why I like Tom Petty. Tom Petty had a way of making really catchy, good music. And while you can look further into the meaning, the meaning wasn't as important to enjoy the music itself. It was like secondary. It was the fact that you can sing it and remember it, and it feels good mostly, and it's mostly C, uh, G, C, and D. He knew the code. He knew how to keep it within the template. And then you're just not there's not a whole lot of whining. Where these other guys eventually they feel like they're supposed to stand up for black people out of nowhere. Or something, some injustice. They point to it. They reduce it to some one narrative of the whole story. I definitely look back at old songs I wrote and cringe. Yeah, everyone should. I even do that with memes. Like my earliest memes were so PragerU, so classical liberal, so, binary. Um, I like Lou Reed. I liked Lou Reed's style. Again, degeneracy, underground, dark, but I don't like the culture. Um, but I just like the old folk songs. I just like how simple they are. I was like, what was I learning? Like Pete Seeger's version of Dink's song. Dink's song is Fare Thee Well. If I had wings like Noah's dove, I'd fly down the river to the one I love. Fairly well, my honey, fairly well. The woman I love, slim and tall, she moved her body like a cannonball. Fairly well, my honey, fairly well. It's so Irishy and simple. No modern Christian chords. Big no to Christian chord progressions, modern Christian chord progressions. That was the biggest mistake for Christianity, is modernity. Should we get a swing pedal? Can we get a synth pedal? Yeah, let's get a synth pedal. No, we're totally open to a totally tattooed lead singer. I'm a worship performer. Yeah, I don't know. Get the lights in the back, and you get the synth pedal, and you get the reverb and the tremolo. It's like, no, you should have stuck to straight up deep, the deep roots gospel, or further back, like the Orthodox do, just like straight up really powerful hymns with the harmonies, just powerhouse. If you could make people move emotionally and physically have chills, like the hair stands up from just voice and resonance, just harmony and words and song, without a loop pedal, without the synth, without the Kurzweil, you know, then you're stripping it down. God is present. But when you add the tattoos and it's just so gay. Ugh. Worldly Christians. Hank Williams. I think I like Hank Williams. Again, I don't really know names. Save the Whales. I got a lot of tattoos. Yeah, well, are you a worship leader too? I told you I got one tattoo and that was enough. And it was just when I first we didn't have our oldest daughter yet, and I was in LA, and I was like, yeah, I would get her initials on my finger, you know. Get her initials on my finger, and then you know, see, MJ. Big mistake. You know why? Cuz it wasn't done properly, and now it says HJ on my right hand. It says HJ on my right hand. I was a worship leader. Yeah, exactly. I got tattoos in the military. I get it. No, there. I don't think people should cover their bodies in tattoos. Some tattoos are nice looking. Most aren't. And there's not much you can tattoo on yourself that can keep its eternality over time. The only thing I could imagine are people, which are really questionable when you tattoo someone's face. Um, um, Scripture, which is seems heretical. Um, but the only thing I could justify are objects and things and memes that don't change over time, that maintain their identity. And the only thing I could really think of are like basic, objects and things in the world, like an egg or a carrot or a spatula, you know. Because I couldn't imagine like something that meant something meant one thing when I got a tattoo, and then later would mean the same thing. It's unlikely that it'll mean the same thing, given that it's not something that's near uh, eternal or invariable. Invariant, I mean, sorry, invariant. $5 Stature Man. Thank you, Stature Man. Dropping a 5 spot to prove gravity is caused by falling. Yeah, that's funny. Um, it's just I don't know. It's impulsive. That's all I can really say about it. I there was a time where I wanted to like a tattoo, like wanted to think of something that would be good to do, and then I just couldn't think about it. It just never worked. Ooh, I'd like to get some Maori tattoo. Is that like the people the New Zealanders killed, and there's some left on New Zealand? You can't get it because you're not part of the tribe. Well, I mean, with the modern trend of identifying, you could be potentially adopted by the Maori people. Screw Loose, Savage Means Volume 3 arrived. So pumped. Thanks, Jim Bob. You're welcome. Thank you for purchasing it. I hope you enjoy it. Should be really good. Got my book yesterday. Thanks, man. Extras are awesome. Yeah, I hope people enjoyed the re the regal mat. It's just so funny and weird. It's a funny magnet because it's not a beautiful shape. It's like very awkward and unbalanced, but I think that lends itself to the regal, which is funny. I think if you threw a javelin at Jacinda, the Maori might let you in. Yeah, totally. That woman is a witch. She's a smiling witch. Negative. Did you see that interview she did? They were like asking about all these other things that are relevant, and she's like, "I'm not going to say any questions unless you're accredited media." She was doing that months before. She said, "Here's what we're doing, basically. We're going to control the media, and don't listen to anything that's not government media." That's literally what she said. She didn't even like dance around it. She was like, "We're only going to listen to accredited government media, and then we're gonna let everyone go play once everything's negative." My horse teeth. Negative. Who the hell is Jacinda? Jacinda Bardam or something. Jardine. She's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Nobody important exactly. which is the worst. But they're all in on it. They're all in on the same game. It's all crumbling. I mean, the all new data that's coming out about the V. I mean, whether it's myocarditis, pericarditis, or the new, they're halting some of the V's because now the stats are actually in. They're re-looking at reanalyzing the numbers for pregnant women. Out of one study, out of 800 women, 106 or something um, miscarriages. That's a big number. That's a big number. Negative. Negative. My son stole it from me. He's 16. Regal flew away the first day. Yeah, the Regal has wings, I was going to say it has legs, but a lot of people recognize that poor lady who's now a meme forever. Imagine being born into the alligator tribe that marks every inch of man when they become men. Wow. Is that also Maori people? I mean, I wouldn't do it, but I think it's kind of cool that they do it. At least it has deeper meaning. It's not just like some people get like Avatar, on their arm. I know of a young pregnant woman who passed. Yeah. And the thing is, there's all these other people who are like, I saw this one politician talking about how there's this massive influx and of people going into the hospital, and they're saying they don't know what it is. It's like, what a sick game, Fake an emergency, coerce the response, and then call the results from the response a new emergency that's not caused by the response. I mean, the level of plausible deniability is insane and almost genius in a sick way. Not in a genius way, I respect it, but genius like sick concoction of plan. It's if only. I really wish at this point in time, it's all out of our hands to some extent. The plan is the plan. We fight evil by pointing it out and abiding by the moral law and But I really wish Kary Mullis was alive. And even if he was, he probably has a shelf life of speaking out before something special happens. But I would love to have seen his take. And we could almost imagine, and for those of you who don't know who Kary Mullis is, the inventor of the PCR test, way back, even just post 80s, where Fauci was administering AZT and using the same test fraudulently, he was calling it out. And now the same game is doable to some extent because Mullis isn't on the scene anymore. Because that would have, especially in today's age of information sharing and the amount of interviews that could be had with the guy, I'm actually surprised that anybody he's worked with underneath him or parallel to him aren't as loud. Maybe they just don't exist. You can't donate organs if you had the jab, but you can't receive organs if you haven't. Interesting. Yeah, these are like indirect genocidal methods. If you really look at it, it's like everyone's so attached to looking at direct cause. Like, what's this? Oh, that's causing that. It's terrible. But then you look at long-term plans. If you wanted to reduce procreation, but also cull a bunch of people, you have to do it in a step-by-step process so that you couldn't really link it back to a main cause. so that it would be blurry. So, I mean, not having access to the hospital, for instance, jacked up the amount of deaths. So people are like, we had this many plus deaths. Well, how do you account for that? You're like, oh, well, you shut down the hospital and you only admitted people based on these prerequisite symptoms, and you turn people down that would otherwise be helped. So, how many people are saved? I know a lot of people are killed per year in America due to medical mistakes, but as many people are saved because they get the attention they need for very specific things. And so when you oh, the hospitals are over capacity, yeah, that's like going to your local pool and taking the number that says 70 persons capacity and changing the number to 20, and then declaring that you're over capacity when you have 22 people there. All you did is lower the number so that you could then categorize these hospitals and these places as being overrun. They're just drowning. Meanwhile, you're laying off nurses. It's like the trickery and deception and disgusting evil is so clear, but it's so unfortunate that's not clear to people, that they almost choose the narrative because it gives them some sort of purpose day to day than just having their purpose be call out the fake narrative. What up, 10 Bears? Negative. Devin Stack claims the Earth has to be a globe because of ham radio. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, I think that's appealing to that might be appealing to satellites, in which case that's not actually true. You can hook a transmitter to a high altitude balloon, because the argument would be, well, you'd need high altitude and it'd be impossible otherwise to transmit those things, around high peaks and things like that. But if I get his argument correctly, it's about altitude. It's about the necessity of repeater systems that transmit data from one thing to another. Well, you can do that with high altitude balloons. I mean, if there are satelloons, like people are like, oh, you're crazy. No, there's actually footage. You could verify that NASA uses the most helium out of any known entity currently, and that they use them because they strap. It's really funny to watch, by the way. If you imagine how NASA is marketed, all the goodies and special things and all the stuff that you assume they have, and you go to their, let's peek into the labs, the JPL, the Jack Parsons lab. Let's look. And then, they just really oversell it. And then you look at them launching a satellite via a balloon and how they do it. And you realize, okay, these two things are inconsistent. It's so funny and archaic looking. It's like a bunch of us got together and we're like, let's hook up a funny small contraption like a boombox to a fairly massive helium balloon, and then we're like, how do we do it? And you're like, if you imagine how you and I would do it, that's exactly how they do it. It's not like high tech. They drive the satellite out with a truck. They wheel it off the truck. They hook it to these balloons, and then they kind of run it like a kite, so that gets off the ground a little bit. And it's almost childish. It's almost like a child is. It works because the balloon will take the thing up. But you realize, if you pair that video next to whatever they're presenting as the cutting edge technology that they also have, the inconsistency is at least funny. The contrast is at minimum funny. At max, it shows that something's not entirely true going on. It's really strap it to a Regal. That's hilarious. And there's a lot of things a radio can bounce off of, you know. You just need something to repeat to transmit the repeater. Now, I don't fully understand the differences in frequency, um, you know, how they're distinct in meter range, um, their wavelengths and whatnot. So I can't argue further on it, but I know for every argument, the thing is, there's no argument about the sky that can prove the shape of anything. You just can't look at the sky no matter what and prove any shape. Unless you knew there was an external barrier. Again, that's the only way you can determine, because then you could use the distance from a surface in every given area that you can get to, and you can basically deduce a shape after measure. And some people say, well, that's what measuring to the stars are and stuff, and it's not, though. It's not the same. When I drive by hospitals earlier on, the parking lots look like deserts. Yeah. Do you know there's more? You guys remember the Chinese footage that came out? That's how they sold this whole thing. There was a guy on some security camera at a subway station with a mask, and he passed out, and they sold that. That was how they got everything started. They just sent that through their guidance program. Everyone, oh, you're looking at Chinese people falling over everywhere. This might be really scary. This one's different. They took that, obviously, being that China has over 700 million cameras in everywhere across their entire country, for the last like 10 years, you could just, like, first of all, you can search. You can just do a search. You don't even need a person to do a search. You can talk to a computer to draw up anybody fainting in the last 10 years on a street corner. Done. Got it. It's like B-roll. When you do B-roll in like reality television, you just search the B-roll. Tree. I need a tree. I need a sunset. I need a bird. Search. Go. And that's the power of mining basically video. The power of it is that you can use an explosion and sell it as a missile, right? You can use an explosion that happened at a factory and repurpose it 5 years later as a missile, and nobody question it, because they don't have the same access as you do, because they own the high volume of video, right? And so you can just always access it, but you can't. You might be able to, but if they own it, they can use it. It's almost like owning background music and stuff. The person or entity, Google, who monopolizes readily available specific data, not just pictures or video, any form of data information that's required that to help support a narrative, you suddenly have access, so long as you're getting your narrative through a screen. Now, that's why the physical space is so important, because Chinese man falling on the corner was always, and still to this day, is inconsistent with our observable reality directly. There's nothing about your direct reality still to this day, after almost 2 years, that's consistent with the narrative that comes through your screen. And that's actually a good argument point if you get into it with someone. And you just say, everything up to this point in my direct senses and everything I can directly observe is inconsistent with what's coming through the screen. It's like they're telling me it's raining out and to put an umbrella on, and it's sunny, but you're believing them, and you're wearing an umbrella. You're holding an umbrella just because it's coming through your phone. The funny part is, it's not funny because it's horrible, but is that the only thing currently consistent with Chinese people falling on security cam footage 2 years ago are people falling over from getting a vaccine. You can find as much footage of people falling over, you know, seizing up, flopping around on the ground. Um, but no, we never saw one person fall over in public from some scary thing sold to you by 46, maybe more now, globalist agenda companies called countries. Me Chinese me Chinese me play joke. Me put color in your cloak. Put color in your cloak. Cloak. They say it's raining, but they're pissing on us. Pretty much. Pretty much. That's why I give us all credit, because we're still highly attached to the guidance system, but we're able to sort of be matrix jumpers. We can like stay in their beastly system and navigate and be unaffected by the onslaught, and kind of swim through it. It's like fluid. You're like swimming through the fluid. You're like, whoa. Like utilizing it, but knowing it when it's false, when it's not true, and we're still able to like gather and discern to some extent, the truth of the matter by looking at what you know not to be true. I think that's called I think it's called apophatic. It's like deduction versus induction. Today's the first day the sun has come out in 2 weeks in northeastern Idaho. That's depressing. You really made it through. Ah, Jimbo Asian impersonation. Oh, killed me. It killed me. Jimbo plus David Patrick Harry was eye opening. Yeah, that's always fun. He's so good with distinctions and certain categories and words that I don't really know. We did talk about something at the end there. It was really interesting called basically we know it exists, but now we know it has a word, memicide, which I think I'll name my next book. The concept that there is genocide occurring, but then the killing of ideas and memes is memicide, and that's an actual thing also happening where you try to remove memes. So everything time you see censorship, it really is an attempt to commit memicide over certain truths. Of course, you can't do it, as we discussed further that podcast. Is that you can't eliminate the truth because it's always there. You have to assume it to even lie. But the memicide is real because the control of memes are really dictated through a system that's controlled by companies and at the mercy of their ideology. That's why it's so important for things like Gab and Torba and company to keep building large scale communications outside of the beast, but parallel to the beast. It doesn't mean it can't be inverted. It can't be usurped. It can be. It can turn into a honeypot. It all depends on what it's dependent on. In other words, just like Parler, which I think was a honeypot to begin with, if it suddenly needs to scale, but doesn't have another company or entity that shares its values, but it still wants to scale. Once it makes a partnership with someone with conflicting values and they're dependent on that partnership, then that larger entity who provides whatever service, be it server space or whatnot, can so just pull the plug, and that's it. Jonathan Sharp, $10. Thank you. That sound like more like a Jew impersonating an Asian person. How would that go? Oh, oh, you are you an Asian? You're an Asian? Oh, oh, you work with your little hands? Oh, Oh, we like that. Bagels. Oh, we like the bagels. Oh. Rubbing tiny yellow hands. Oh. I'll rub the hands. So basically, Bob Dylan. Oh. Someone told me, hey, I heard Gav is a honeypot. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think it could be turned into just the way I described, that it can suddenly um, find the end of what would look like a honeypot. But that could happen for a variety of reasons. It's not always just like a trap to begin with. You have to rub your chopsticks together. That's hilarious. Oh yeah. Oh, the Chinese can't pronounce the L. We save money in banking, so grr. Do a weed whacker sound and then pull it back a notch. That's actually really hard synthesis to do. That's a funny game. Chinese people, I mean, it all started when I realized that the Barricades Garage's Jordan Peterson was actually, who was it? What was it? His Jordan Peterson was Jordan Peterson doing Ayn Rand or something like that. I forgot what it was. Always swap the L and the R. Yeah. Anyway, I have to make this a short one, you guys. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes, but we got to get going. We got to go to the storage unit. We got to get a bunch of books. I have to sit there and sign them. I have to finish a couple of paintings and stuff like that. Everything is a controlled honeypot thing is exhausting. Yeah, absolutely. Also, controlled opposition. Like, things aren't that simple, you know. Like if you can, for instance, you can know what InfoWars is. You could probably understand, especially given you watch some of Matthew North's stuff, that he is likely part of a COINTELPRO himself. But this concept that you don't go on these places, like for instance, I've been on InfoWars with Harrison. It's not Harrison Hanks. Harrison Smith. And, they have their operation. They probably farm some people to make, they want people who are really about, maybe making money. That was my impression. They were like, yeah, you could sell a lot of books. And I was like, eh. And they're like, you want to go on with Alex? And they probably thought I was going to be like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. I just wasn't like chomping at the bit. But this concept that that these platforms, you can't also go in, and if you get the chance to not work for them, but if you go on, you can push the conversations that you want to push. That just requires courage and balls. But the concept that you stay off them, that's what I also hate, is if someone, suddenly if let's say Owen went back on InfoWars, or he went and talked to Joe Rogan, he'd get about 20% of people going, oh, you're such a sellout. After all that, he goes back on. No, that's not the point. The point is that you can still interact, that you actually, that the things you think and the values you're pushing, you actually have a chance and an opportunity to always vindicate it, right? To go back. Like Owen, for instance, when he went back on with Sam Tripoli. It's like a perfect example of how time permits clarity, and that if you stay in good spirit and you don't go too far as like, attacking people and their family, you don't do anything that's at least at the human level irredeemable, for unforgivable. I don't think there's anything unforgivable actually, but the point is you can go and influence these things. It doesn't, like, that whole narrative of like suddenly someone goes on one of these places, suddenly they're a sellout. I think that's very dumb and limiting. I think it's a silly way to look at it. Because what would make it a sellout is if you went on and suddenly bit your tongue about certain things that you could definitely say in a way that's permissible on those shows. I think that's where the judge, whether you're judging properly or not. Does that make sense? BB and the Toe would be great. Yeah. And that's another thing that people don't understand, like, about Owen, is he's so forgiving. He just wants people to kind of have fun. And even if he like went after someone so hard, if he talked to someone in person, he'd be totally like nice. It's like you just don't. It's harder to get that when you just look at isolated moments of like a rant or something. I think that's also not peculiar to him. It's most people. Most of us who are fiery and say what we believe to be true and use rhetoric and insult and all this stuff against the person, let's say. In person, if we met that person, we wouldn't be cruel. We wouldn't be, there would be no expectation to be as fiery or impersonal in person, which is different than like kissing someone's ass, by the way. You don't just kiss people's ass. I can't see Toe ever doing it. No, he would never do it. He's too much pride.